I'm Lila, a 45-year-old who had given up on marriage. I married Keith, who I met after turning 40, and a year ago we opened a bar. I met my husband Keith at a bar I just happened to stop by at. From that time, Keith was visiting various places in preparation for opening our own bar. He said he fell in love with me at first sight because of my hearty drinking style. For the first time, I thought it was good to be a heavy drinker. We started dating and got married in 6 months. Both of us being adults, we didn't have much conflict and are still on good terms. Thanks to our good relationship, we've gained a lot of regular customers. The bar is doing well, and I'd like to say we have no worries, but the problem is my brother Oswald and his wife Kristen, who live nearby, coming to our bar. Every day they come by, and it's really annoying.
Thanks for the free meal. Oh, I'm stuffed. But hey, cook faster next time and bring it over quickly.
Oswald, chewing on a toothpick, said this as he ate with Kristen, who suddenly blurted out, "This is Ray, our son. He's a troublemaker, so you raise him," she said, bringing the nephew they brought along in front of us.
"See ya, and don't come back, Ray. We'll send your stuff over to their place."
Ray was teary-eyed. Understandable, since he's only 10. "What the heck? Ray's just 10. Are you abandoning your child?" I asked, and Kristen sighed, laughing as she answered. "Well, Ray doesn't listen and acts like a punk. I'm pregnant with a second child, so we're giving away the defective one, the real bad product." What a thing to say in front of her own child. Before I could get angry, Keith spoke up.
"All right, Ray, from today, I'm your dad. Come here."
This is why I fell for Keith, his straightforwardness. I also turned to Ray. "All right, and I'm happy to say I'm your mom now. Come here." Soon after, we legally adopted him, and Ray became our child. With Keith's advice, we paid Oswald and Kristen $10,000 along with the formal paperwork. This was to prevent any future troubles with the biological parents. 10 years passed and Ray turned 20. Since then, we banned Oswald and Kristen from our shop and home, so we didn't know each other's whereabouts. Our business flourished, and we even owned multiple stores. That day, as the shop settled down, the door opened.
"Whoa, you guys are thriving. You're like celebrities,"
Oswald said as he walked in. Kristen, appearing from behind, spotted Ray and immediately called out, "Hey, Ray, we're going home. Come on." I was dumbfounded. Did they have no common sense? But Ray calmly said, "This is my home. My parents are here and you guys should leave." He continued working without looking at them. Ray was working at this bar. "What are you talking about? Your home is our apartment." "No, that's messed up. The adoption was finalized 10 years ago." Do they not remember? I continued. "You abandoned Ray, calling him a bad kid, but it was just because of you. He's actually a great, honest kid." Ray had been a bad kid, but changed after meeting someone in middle school. He had many conflicts with his friends then, but now they support him. He graduated high school and went to vocational school. It was a culinary school. "I'm determined to carry on Dad's flavors," he would say. The last 10 years were tough, but I have no regrets. I'm proud to have become his real parent. Oswald and Kristen, after abandoning him, now claim they've come to take him back. Unforgivable.
"What do you mean? We're Ray's biological parents. We can do what we want with Ray."
"How many times do we have to tell you he's officially our son now?" Oswald stunned.
"No way. That's invalid, right? That was a promise made 10 years ago."
"It's not just a verbal promise. Legally, we're his parents." I showed them the adoption papers I had stored by the register in the event something like this ever happened, complete with proof of payment. As he took them, Oswald smirked and tore the paper.
"There, now it's invalid. You fell for my plan."
"I thought you might do that. That's a copy. I wouldn't give you the original." Shaken, Oswald said,
"What? Talking back to your brother like that?"
"You should be grateful we came to pick you up."
Ray, not looking at them, said, "No, I didn't ask for this, so why should I be grateful? My parents are, well, Lila's my mom and Keith's my dad." While blushing, I felt like crying, but now wasn't the time. I'll have him say it again later. Is it even okay for you to be here at this hour? Didn't you say 10 years ago that you were pregnant with a second child? Who's taking care of him or her now? I had a bad feeling, but Kristen replied,
That kid turned bad too. Probably out playing with friends now.
Unbelievable. No love for your own children? I end up speaking in a strong tone.
So we came to take Ray back, thinking of swapping the kids. You guys can raise our second child, right? Cool with you?
These people are unfit for parenting. Ray's an adult now, so it's up to him. But let us take the other child too.
Really? Okay. This time it's $50K.
I couldn't believe how disgusting my brother's words were, as if he was only after the money, probably planning to snatch Ray's earnings. Then, unexpectedly, I'll pay the money, please take my brother too. Dad, sorry for the trouble, Ray said. And so, we adopted his brother too. Keith initially offered to pay the $50K. Dad, this is my responsibility, please let me handle it as a man. And he refused. Keith respected Ray's decision as an adult. The brother Kay was more of a handful than Ray. At 10, he stayed out late and didn't trust adults. With Ray's former friend's help, Ray turned out great, but raising another troubled child at this age was hard. Yet we respected Ray's wishes. A year later, the police visited our bar, saying there was a report of us kidnapping children. They came to check due to the nature of a complaint. Our regular customers defended us, saying it was unbelievable. We proved our innocence, and the police left quickly. Oswald and Kristen got a scolding from them. They deserved it for such a nuisance. Lately, the bar's been bustling thanks to Ray and Kay. In the middle of this, such harassment was truly bothersome. While writing the day's report after closing, the door opened. Shoot, I forgot to lock it. I had a bad feeling. Oswald came straight over.
Whoa, you're making even more money, thanks to our sons, right?
How did you find that out? They're none of your business now. Kristen let out a sigh.
Can you believe Kay has over 10K followers on his streaming videos? We're taking him back today.
That's not it. The videos of Ray and Kay cooking are popular because of their skills, not thanks to you. As Kristen looked for her sons, she continued.
I gave birth to handsome boys. It's thanks to me. If you don't comply, we have plans. Sorry for the inconvenience.
Then they left and the brothers came out. What are they planning? Maybe we should make them understand with force. No, I'll handle it, Ray. The brothers discussed. Keith, standing behind them, tapped their shoulders. The two looked back.
You're our children now. Don't cross any boundaries.
They reluctantly obeyed, but Oswald and Kristen escalated their harassment. Our online reviews were tampered with. It was likely Oswald. That bar uses expired ingredients, or they hire bad guys to intimidate customers, were among the accusations. Some comments refuted them, but the issue wasn't settled. We received many prank calls and group cancellations. Such petty harassment was really troublesome. After enduring this for half a year, Oswald and Kristen came by.
Hey, aren't you going to close the shop? So stubborn.
These were their first words. Utterly frustrating.
Give back our sons already. They're good money.
You both still haven't changed, huh? This was all you guys, right? Oswald replied jokingly as always.
What are you talking about? Just give them back.
The boys are not objects. Go home now. Oswald handed over a paper saying something outrageous.
We're opening a bar, and they're going to work for us.
The paper was a loan agreement and a business plan. I wondered if any bank would lend on such a flimsy plan. Oswald, where did you borrow this money from? Isn't this risky?
It's fine. Ray can pay if anything goes wrong.
The lender was clearly shady, with bizarre interest rates. The situation would cause trouble for Ray and Kay.
It seems as though the online impact is huge. A friend of mine canceled after seeing the reviews.
No wonder we hardly got new customers. It's you guys causing trouble. Kristen feigned ignorance.
I don't know what you're talking about. There's no proof. Maybe the health department will come next. If you don't want that, why don't you help with the financing?
Now they're even resorting to threats. I should have recorded this conversation. The situation will surely affect Ray and Kay. Though I'm not familiar with social media, I'm sure they're trolling their streaming activities too. We won't let anything interfere with Ray and Kay's activities. But proving anonymous actions as theirs is difficult. These are such convenient times for bad guys, too. Justice only prevails in movies and fiction.
Today, we brought someone with us. Come in.
A man with a fake smile appeared behind Oswald and Kristen, his eyes not laughing. He's not a normal person. Definitely not just a troublemaker.
Hello, I'm Robbie. I'm the one who financed this.
Clearly, he wants to ensure his money is repaid. Robbie, smiling, surveyed the bar, probably checking for security cameras. He's more experienced than Kristen. After checking the cameras, he made a veiled threat.
We just want the money back. Can you bring your sons as guarantors?
Ray and Kay, once delinquents, were trembling in the back. It's natural to be scared. I resolved to protect them when suddenly... Hold on. Keith, who had been quietly listening, spoke up.
First, Robbie, my sons aren't guarantors, so collect the debt from Oswald. What? Are you mocking us? Do you know who we're working for?
Keith removed his apron and replied. Yeah, I know. Jonathan, right? Doesn't he know about me? Robbie's face turned pale as he stared at Keith.
Are you the Keith who used to be on par with Jonathan?
Everyone was shocked. We couldn't imagine gentle Keith being involved in such a past. I can't believe that such a kind person was once a delinquent. Later, I learned he wasn't really a troublemaker. He just became known for defending himself from the bad guys. Still, he had contributed to peace in the area, resolving conflicts of others. Robbie's face lit up with admiration. Hey, Robbie, connect me to Jonathan. Robbie hurriedly made the call, and Keith turned on the speakerphone.
Hey, Robbie, what took you so long?
Hey, Jonathan, you still doing this kind of stuff? After a pause, Jonathan replied.
Oh, whoa, is that you, Keith? Why are you on Robbie's phone?
I'm dealing with this Oswald issue. He's my wife's brother. Jonathan sighed.
I'll take a step back for you, Keith.
No, just remove the guarantors and keep the interest within legal limits. Oswald and Kristen paled with relief.
Jonathan, quit this business. If you start a normal job, let's have a meal. All right, I'll consider it. Time to move on.
The call ended. Next, Oswald and you. I filed a disclosure request.
How can you do that with anonymous actions?
Keith calmly placed several papers on the table. Laws change. Disclosure requests are easier now. You should have remembered you registered on public Wi-Fi and not your cell phone. Oswald realized his mistake. Kristen blurted out in panic.
Oswald, you idiot. I told you to be careful. I was smart using overseas servers.
Realizing her slip-up, but defiant, she scoffed.
There's no proof. Being caught here doesn't matter.
Then Robbie tapped Kristen's shoulder, pointing up. The security camera caught everything, and Kristen's eyes met the cameras.
Keith, Lila, I'm sorry for everything. I'm leaving now. Sorry to you too. Ray and Kay, I'll just go.
With that, they left. Perhaps losing their backup, Oswald abandoned his wife and fled to the restroom, only to return with a mop. He then smashed the security camera.
Now there's no evidence. Serves you right.
However, Ray played his final card. Too bad. This whole thing was live-streamed on Kay's channel. Dad told us not to film Robbie, so we only shot you two. That was what Robbie had mentioned earlier. I was surprised by Keith's foresight. The screen Ray and Kay showed displayed the damaged shop and Oswald. Kay then spoke.
Thousands of people watch my broadcast. It may seem fake, but I won't stop.
These are our biological parents. We became delinquents because of them. Indeed, I knew their story. Oswald and Kristen rarely came home and didn't pay for school, leading Kay to truancy. It was the same reason Ray became a delinquent. Anyone in their situation would struggle to grow up right. When we took them in, they were thin and haggard. They cried when we first fed them. It's heartbreaking that not all children get such basic care. Tearfully, Kay confronted them. When I was abandoned for being a delinquent, Ray, Dad, especially Mom, saved me. I consider her my real mom. Ray always brags, Mom and Dad are our real parents. Hey, you don't have to mention everything. Ray blushed. We never knew he felt that way, and I was moved to tears. Keith was crying hard. Anyway, we're cutting ties completely. I hope you get caught. If you disturb Mom, Dad, or Kay again, we won't hold back. Then Oswald's phone rang. Apparently, his boss saw the broadcast and was furious. Oswald was apologizing. Kristen's phone was ringing nonstop, too. She sat down in despair. We filed charges for property damage, defamation, and business interference. Ultimately, Jonathan settled the payments in full as a settlement. He did this to ensure he'd get his loaned money back, as arrest would hinder repayment. Maybe arrest would have been better for them. Oswald got fired for abuse exposure, and Kristen, shunned by friends who saw Kay's broadcast, lost all her close relationships. The influencer power was frightening. With no one else, they turned to Jonathan. They were set far out in the countryside for hard labor, likely until retirement. A bad choice of reliance. Keith said, "Jonathan's unforgiving as an enemy, but reliable as a comrade. He probably sent them far as a favor to us. I'll invite him to our shop." That's what he said. Jonathan was selective, dealing legally except with such trashy people. Not that it justifies his actions, but he helped us. Our son's channel became famous after the broadcast, spreading their story of brotherly love. Both of them being handsome, they attracted fans to our shop. Their old delinquent friends, inspired by the broadcast, have become better people and now visit or work at our bar. The area became safe, with all the delinquents gone. They found purpose through work, no longer needing to be delinquents. Ray became the main shop's manager and some of his friends, managers of branches. Our shop became known nationwide. It's a reminder to ponder why someone becomes a delinquent, understanding their reasons. You realize they're just like us at birth. Today, Keith and I work alongside everyone once again.
I've reached my limit. I hate to ask, but can I crash at your place for a few days? Dad had been kicked out of the family home by my sisters and Mom, and now he stood at my doorstep. Seeing Dad, who had always been so strong, talk about reaching his limit, I blamed myself. "I'm sorry, Dad." In that moment, as I tried to apologize for my inability to help alleviate his suffering, my husband Ethan spoke up. "Let's live with your father-in-law." "Are you sure?" I turned to Ethan, surprise evident in my voice. Dad, too, could barely hide his shock, his eyes wide open. "My name is Emily. I'm 26 years old. Ethan and I started dating in college, and we got married 2 years ago. Our days are filled with a fulfilling work-life balance. Ethan is my best supporter, always by my side. I never thought I'd find someone who gives me such confidence, let alone marry them. As the youngest of 3 sisters, I grew up in an environment where I could never go against my mom and my sisters. I was always the last one in line for attention from Mom, and also the lowest in rank among my sisters. Every time I voiced an opinion, sharp words would come flying back at me. Over time, I stopped expressing myself and started to suppress my feelings. I bore the treatment of being treated like a servant by my mom and my sisters without complaining. "I wanted a boy. When I found out you were another girl, I was so disgusted. Grace and Ashley are enough for girls. You're an unwanted child, and yet here you are in this house. If you want to stay here, you have to work." Mom often belittled me like this. Even if you tell me that, how many times have I swallowed my words, the ones I wanted to say back to her? By the time I entered elementary and middle school, I was in charge of most of the household chores, from preparing meals and doing laundry to getting the bath ready. People around me would praise me, saying, "That's impressive," or "You're so responsible." But I only found joy in that at first. "It's a given that you do all these things," Mom would say with no words of thanks or praise. Instead, I was constantly being reprimanded for my cooking or the way I folded the laundry. The one who kept me going through all this was Dad. Unlike Mom and my sisters, Dad loved me and respected me. As the only man in the family, Dad was not well liked by Mom and my sisters, and his power within the family was as low as mine. But he always stood up for me.
I'm sorry, Emily. You always have to put up with so much. If only we could all live in harmony.
Dad would often hold me tight and say these things. Despite his early mornings and late nights for work, Dad would always spend his days off with me, fulfilling Mom and my sister's demands together. And he always listened to my feelings and accepted my words. But my mom and her cohorts didn't seem to like that. "There's no one to protect you today," they'd tell me, pushing more chores onto me. They'd hurl harsh words at Dad too, such as, "For a man, low income." And my sisters would follow their lead, laughing and saying, "Disgusting!" and "Don't open your mouth." So no matter how much Dad tried to be a pillar of support, I was becoming increasingly frail. Noticing my distress, Dad said something to me when I entered high school.
Emily, study as much as you can, then go to college. Leave this house and live on your own. You, Emily, have so many possibilities. There's no need to endure and stay in this house forever. I want you to live your life.
My father urged me. At his words, I felt both elated and anxious. At the time, my eldest sister, Grace, 6 years older than me, was attending a private university. Ashley, 4 years older, was at a vocational school. Mom would often ridicule Dad for his low income and tell me, "We're poor because he doesn't bring in money, so you should start working once you graduate from high school." Because of this, I believed our family was financially struggling. Despite that, I worried if Dad was pushing himself too hard, telling me to go to college and live on my own. But Dad insisted there's no need to worry about money.
I feel responsible for making you suffer so much. That's why I don't want you to endure any longer.
Dad,
this is a request from your father. You don't have to worry about anything. Just go to the university you want, study what you want. Find what you love to do. I want you to lead a happy life to make up for the hardship you've been through.
I could feel his strong resolve as he gripped my shoulder, his eyes moist with tears. From then on, I devoted myself to the studies I had neglected. Juggling the overbearing instructions from my mom and sisters, I spent all my remaining time studying at my desk. My hard work paid off, and I was accepted into a university. Dad and I embraced each other, sharing the joy of my acceptance. I kept it a secret from Mom and my sisters until the last minute, only announcing my plans to go to college and live alone on the day I was moving. At that time, Grace had already moved out and was living on her own, leaving only Mom and Ashley at home, who showered me with shouts of rage. I endured their harsh words until the end, finally breaking free from them. I kept my new mobile phone, a gift from Dad, a secret, not telling them which university I was going to or where I was going to live. Though I stayed in touch with Dad, I started a life without any involvement with my mom or my sisters. But just because I escaped from them didn't mean my university life was smooth sailing. I wasn't used to speaking my mind, and as a timid person, I was somewhat invisible in my department, unable to make friends. Then, Ethan reached out to me.
What do you think, Emily?
I was surprised when Ethan, the bright and central figure of the group, spoke to me. I was already uncomfortable speaking in front of people, and being put on the spot by him left me speechless. But Ethan pressed me.
You have thoughts, right? Share them. We won't know unless you say something.
A person who is pushy and doesn't consider other people's feelings. I initially thought of Ethan as pushy and inconsiderate. But as time passed, I came to see the kindness in Ethan, how he respected people's opinions. Thanks to Ethan, I started to make friends. Before long, I found myself drawn to Ethan, and by our 3rd year, our relationship had progressed to dating. When I started dating Ethan, Dad excitedly congratulated us. And when I found a job, when Ethan and I decided to move in together, and when we decided to get married, Dad celebrated my happiness as if it was his own. But I had always been worried about Dad. Since starting university, I hadn't been home and hadn't seen Dad even once. We stayed in touch, but I was still concerned. Dad was living at that place with Mom and the others. I had no doubt he was still enduring snide comments from Mom and Ashley, still spending his days under their domineering instructions. Dad, I'm happy today because of you. Back then, I was powerless and always needed your help. But things have changed. I'm working now and I'm married. I have someone who supports me. So now it's my turn to help you. Please let me know if you're in any trouble. When I announced my marriage, I told him that. Having learned the importance of expressing my feelings to others since being with Ethan, I was finally able to put into words what I had never been able to tell Dad before.
Thank you.
Dad replied that way, but until now, 2 years later, Dad never asked me for help. Furthermore, recently, I heard that Grace, who was supposed to be living alone, quit her job and returned to our parents' house. My worry for Dad had only increased. Then one day, the doorbell rang just as I was confiding in Ethan about how worried I was about Dad. December was almost over, and even though it wasn't even 4 p.m., it was already getting dark outside. We had no scheduled deliveries, so we were surprised when we looked at the screen of the intercom. The person shown by the camera was none other than Dad. I rushed to the front door and opened it. Seeing Dad for the first time in 8 years, his cheeks were hollowed out, and there was more white than black in his hair. He looked visibly unwell. I instinctively knew that his sudden visit without any notice wasn't for a casual reason. Dad, what's happened? Please come inside. It must be cold outside. Dad was wearing trousers and a long-sleeve shirt, even in December. This seemed too thin. Why would he be outside dressed like that? But the reason was revealed from Dad's mouth. Dad was kicked out of the house by Mom and the others.
They told me to go buy dessert, so I went to the nearby convenience store. But when I came back, the house was locked. I asked them to open up, but they told me not to come back and didn't let me in.
What?
I left the house without my phone or jacket, but I waited for several hours and they didn't seem to let me in.
As Dad rubbed his cold body, he told us about what happened that day. I quickly made some hot tea and gave it to Dad. Dad held the cup of tea with both hands to get warm and muttered softly,
I might not be able to go back to that house again.
Why?
Ever since Grace came back, Mom and the others' attitude got even worse. I was feeling at my limits too, and then they did this to me. I don't even have the energy to go back. I think I should look for a monthly apartment and think about what to do in the future. I'm sorry, but could I stay here for a few days? I'll leave as soon as I find an apartment.
I was worried, but I hadn't imagined it was this bad. Dad, who never complained before, was talking about his limits? I'm sorry, Dad. I was about to apologize to Dad for knowing about his troubles and not being able to do anything when...
Let's live with your father.
Ethan raised his voice. Are you sure? I turned to my husband in surprise. Dad, too, unable to hide his surprise, opened his eyes wide.
Sorry for being blunt, especially since we just met, but your father-in-law doesn't look too healthy. I think it would be best if we lived together to help him recover. Everything else can be figured out later. Of course, only if he's okay with this.
Ethan's suggestion left Dad and I with nothing but gratitude. And so our new life as a trio began. Just a few days after Dad moved in, our doorbell rang again. All three of us were stunned by the figures displayed on the intercom screen. Mom and my sisters were standing there. Why here? Shocked and bitter past memories made my breath hitch. But I had to face them. I didn't know what they would do next. In a panic, I opened the door. Wow, I didn't expect you to be living in such a fancy place. I thought you were scraping by in some rundown apartment. Hearing Mom's voice after such a long time, all I could feel was resentment. Why are you here? Your father's mobile had your address in it. I had no idea Emily even had a mobile phone. Why would you give him your contact info but not us? Are you honoring the wrong person? Just as before, Grace arrogantly looked down at me. After Mom's words, seeing her like this, Mom smiled satisfied and spoke again. Well, never mind. Is your father here? We're having some trouble without him. Even though she said they were in trouble, there were no signs of actual distress. All three of them were smirking. In trouble? But you're the ones who kicked him out. You've become quite sassy, haven't you? So he is here. Move aside. No. I yelled at Mom and her group. Mom's typical overbearing tone and her condescending remarks about me fueled my irritation. It would have been impossible in the past, but I had changed, all thanks to Ethan. However, Mom's irritation became apparent as she raised her voice. When did I ever give you permission to talk back? Just move. You can't even listen to what I say. I'm not the same person I used to be. I won't be pushed around by you, Mom. I refused firmly. Ethan came up beside me, trying to shoo Mom and the others away. Despite our efforts, Mom and her group wouldn't leave. We repeated, move, and no, until tired of the ordeal or maybe having given up. Mom was the one to break first. That's enough. I don't want to hear any more from you. If you won't move, can you at least let us know when the money will be deposited in our account? It's really annoying that all you can do is put money in, and you can't even do that. I was speechless at Mom's words. How did she think she's been able to live without working? My anger reached its peak. From now on, Dad will be living with us. Dad and I will no longer be pushed around by you guys. Please divorce Dad and stop causing him pain. As I couldn't hold back my words any longer, the response from my mom was something I hadn't anticipated. Don't make it sound like I'm the bad guy. I've been kind enough to stay as a family with a man like him who is low income and can't do a thing. You should be thanking me. What? You're just like your dad, a low-income loser, acting high and mighty, but in the end, all you're doing is licking each other's wounds. I felt like I was about to lose control at Mom's words. I was on the verge of raising my voice, of lashing out, but then my husband spoke.
Emily works hard. She's a supervisor, earning a decent wage. I'd appreciate it if you didn't belittle us with comments about licking wounds.
As my husband stared down Mom, she retorted.
Don't you dare talk back to me. You're an outsider, so stay quiet.
That's when Mom turned on Ethan. Dad, who should have been in the living room, was suddenly at my side, addressing Mom.
I've heard enough. We can't impose on Emily and Ethan anymore. Let's get a divorce.
Dad? At Dad's words, my sisters chimed in with, That's fine. That's fine. We don't need a creepy guy like you. One voice called out. Emboldened by my sisters, Mom agreed.
That's fine by me.
I was dumbfounded by how quickly things had been resolved, but the peace didn't last long.
But there's one condition. Hand over that house to me, then I'll give you your divorce.
Mom laid out her demand. Just how greedy could this woman be? but Dad quickly agreed to Mom's demand. "Dad, are you sure?" I was shocked, but Dad turned to me and smiled.
If that's all it takes to get a divorce, it's a small price to pay.
He then turned back to Mom, his face serious.
I'll do as you ask. Leave for today. I'll come over tomorrow.
With that, Dad sent Mom and my sisters home. They continued to belittle me until the end, but I didn't care. I felt guilty for pushing a divorce and causing Dad to lose his home. But Dad patted my shoulder.
It's not your fault, Emily. In fact, I'm glad you spoke up.
The next day, Dad went back home one last time with the divorce papers. He made Mom fill out the divorce application, handled some paperwork, and packed his belongings. When Dad came back from our family home, he looked somehow lighter. It was sad to see the house go to Mom and my sisters, but if Dad felt relieved, I was okay with it. A few months later, Dad told me what had happened to Mom and my sisters. They had taken the family home as part of the divorce settlement and planned to live lavishly by selling it. However, the house was old. The location wasn't great. They couldn't sell the house or land for much, and demolition costs ate into the proceeds. In the end, they were left with almost nothing. Now, without a home or savings, Mom didn't work. Neither did Grace or Ashley have stable jobs. And with Dad gone, the same Dad they ridiculed for his low income status while they leaned on him for living expenses, the trio found themselves in dire straits. They tried seeking help, showed up at our house several times, but we never opened the door to them. Still, they refused to give up, causing commotion at the front porch. I finally had to tell them through the intercom, "If you make any more noise, I'll call the cops." That sent them packing. Now it seems they're barely managing, renting an apartment that's too cramped for 3. Even Mom, who never worked before, was seemingly forced to get a job. That's how desperate they were. Despite all the times they made fun of Dad and I as a trio, they now seemed to be constantly bickering among themselves. They appeared to be blaming each other for their current circumstances. People rarely change. With neither Dad nor me around anymore, the ones they used to ridicule, they can't help but find someone else to target. It seems they're destined to lead lives filled with both physical and emotional poverty. Meanwhile, our lives have taken the polar opposite trajectory. Despite all their mockery about Dad being low income, he had actually been trading stocks for years, amassing a fortune. We only learned about this after the divorce was finalized. Dad feared that if any information leaked out, the trio would try to seize his assets, so he had decided not to mention it until the divorce was over. That's probably why he didn't mind giving up the family home. Now we're living comfortably in a new house that Dad built with his wealth. He quit his job to focus on his stocks. My husband and I have jobs too, so we're not struggling financially. We support each other while each maintaining our own financial independence. We hope to build the loving family that we couldn't have when we were young, from here on out.
Don't sweat the small stuff. My mom's just brutally honest. You'll get used to it. Even when I'm hurt by his mother's harsh words, Alec just brushes it off. I love him, but it makes me wonder if marrying him is the right choice. My name is Emmy. I'm a 31-year-old average office worker. I've been dating Alec for 6 months, and we've recently decided to tie the knot. Deciding to get married after only half a year of dating felt a bit rushed. We both still live with our parents and have only been going on weekly dates. Alec has visited my house a few times, but I've never been to his. But I'm already 31, and Alec is 36. At our age, dating naturally leads to talks about marriage. Alec is an only child, but he suggested we get our own place instead of living with his parents. He even said he saved up a down payment. He loves kids and promised to help out with housework and childcare. I have no complaints about Alec. I love him. I was on cloud 9 at that moment, never imagining what would happen at our wedding ceremony. Meeting Alex's parents for the first time was during our pre-wedding visit. I assumed they'd be nice and welcoming, and at first, there were no issues. But then, as we sat down on the living room sofa, his mother blurted out, "You're ugly." What? I was taken aback. "You have buck teeth. It's unattractive." I couldn't see it before because of the backlight, but it's quite noticeable. Didn't you get braces as a kid, or is your family too poor? I was stunned by her rapid-fire insults. "Well, I don't think it's that bad," I managed to say, holding back my real thoughts. I'd never been self-conscious about my teeth before. "No, you look like a monkey. Why did Alec choose someone so ugly? His father has better taste." Maybe Alec finds the ugly woman exotic because he's used to beautiful women like me. Alec's mother continued to belittle me. She wore heavy makeup, and sure, she was attractive, but her makeup was so thick, it looked tacky. "There aren't many beauties like Mom. I take after Dad, so Emmy is a good match for me," Alex said, failing to defend me. "Emmy, you should learn some makeup tips from my wife. Maybe you'll look a bit better," Alex's dad added, sounding polite, but still rude. I learned that Alex's mother had won a local beauty pageant, a small-town beauty contest. Why does this family have such a big attitude over something so trivial? And why isn't Alex standing up for me? I was at a loss for words in the face of such rudeness. Then Alex's mother smugly said, "Feeling bad. This is why I don't like women. They get moody so easily. I'm just an honest person. If someone said the same to me, I wouldn't care." I wanted to say, "You're a woman too," but I held my tongue. Alex seemed unfazed. His dad added, "My wife has always been like this. She's straightforward, so we rarely have nasty fights. Emmy, you're lucky to have such an honest mother-in-law." Are you kidding me? I thought, but didn't say anything. I had no idea Alex's parents would be this intense. I barely remember how we wrapped up that visit. After the awkward visit, Alec offered to drive me to the station. On the way, I decided to ask him about what had been bothering me. "Do you think I have buck teeth?" "I don't mind them," he replied. "Good, but why did your mom call me monkey-like?" "She's just honest, isn't she?" I wasn't satisfied with Alec's answer, but I moved on to my next question. "What did you mean by settling for me?" This had been bothering me too. "It means we're a good match." Wait, what? So he's saying I'm not as beautiful as his mother. Not only was he not defending me, but he was also being downright rude. I wanted him to compliment me, even if it was a lie. Should I reconsider this marriage? I was starting to have doubts. I had my reasons for wanting to move out and get married. My brother Justin was already married and living at home. We have a large house in the suburbs with plenty of rooms. I had planned to move out when Justin got married, but we all get along so well, and his wife Beatrix is so friendly that I've stayed put. But I knew it was time to move on. When I got home, Justin had just returned from work. I asked him the same question. "Do you think I have buck teeth?" "What? No, never noticed." "Right? Did someone say something? You were visiting Alex's family today, right?" "No, just wondering." I dodged, impressed by his intuition. A warning bell was ringing in my mind, telling me to reconsider the marriage. But I had come this far. We'd be fine as long as his parents stayed out of our lives, I told myself. Then came the wedding day. Throughout the preparations, my mother-in-law kept criticizing me. I decided to ignore her. I had a lot to do, and we rarely saw each other. If we could just get through the wedding, we'd be married. We'd be happy. Or so I thought. Unfortunately, an incident occurred. It happened while my boss was giving a speech, praising me to the skies. I was both pleased and embarrassed. I looked up to see how my family was reacting and caught my mother-in-law's eye. She didn't seem to find it interesting that I was being praised and had a surprisingly hateful look on her face. She looked furious, probably from too much wine. Empty wine bottles littered the table. Mother-in-law slowly stood up. She stood up and walked toward the MC, grabbing the microphone. The host was confused, and I couldn't help but be confused too. Emmy is in the sun at work. Listen, everyone, she shouted, interrupting my boss. It was incredibly rude. Mother-in-law continues, without worrying. Enough! I know who this boss is, but you're praising Emmy way too much. She can't be that great. She's over 30 and still living at home, so she must be useless at housework. She's a defective woman. Even with makeup, she's ugly. The room fell silent. My boss stood frozen, still holding the mic. Hey, what are you doing? Stop it! My boss was speaking, I shouted, my voice echoing in the room. My mother-in-law looked dangerously drunk. I'm just telling everyone the truth. I'm exposing you for what you are. This isn't the time or place for that. It doesn't matter. Women should speak their minds too. If something's wrong, it's wrong. Your boss didn't praise you that much either. Gender doesn't matter here. We're talking about interrupting a speech. As I argued, I realized something. Earlier, when Alec's boss gave a speech, he mostly talked about the company and barely praised Alec. That must have upset her, and the alcohol fueled her emotions. Enough! A daughter-in-law should obey her mother-in-law. See how cheeky she is? She's not as great as everyone says. But since we've already had the wedding, I guess I'll have to discipline her. Please be kind to my buck-toothed, ugly daughter-in-law. With that, she sat down and started drinking again as if nothing had happened. My father-in-law pretended not to notice, and Alec, sitting next to me, was silent. He even started eating the untouched food. Unbelievable. The guests were still confused, and the MC looked at me for guidance. Should we continue the ceremony? The wedding is still in its early stages. I was furious at my mother-in-law's outburst, but I didn't want to ruin the wedding. I hesitated, but nodded. Just as the MC was about to speak, Justin stood up. Is that all you have to say? Beatrix tried to pull him back, but he pushed her hand away. She gave up and mouthed, "Sorry, can't help it," to me. My parents didn't seem to want to stop Justin. They looked ready to confront my mother-in-law themselves. The ceremony was already off the rails. "What did you say?" my mother-in-law asked. Justin repeated his words, his voice low and menacing. "Is that all you have to say?" Justin is nearly 7 feet tall and has a good build from playing rugby in school. He was furious, and it was intimidating. "You insult my sister in front of our family and relatives. You better be prepared." Alex, sitting next to me, jumped out of his seat. He stopped eating his steak and whispered to me, "Hey, Emmy, can you stop your brother-in-law? Is he trying to ruin our wedding?" "What? Your mom already ruined it." "She just spoke her mind. There was no problem. Your brother is threatening her." "Are you serious? The only problem here is her. If she hadn't insulted me, my brother wouldn't be angry. Why should I stop him when you didn't stop her?" I was so frustrated with Alex's response that I stopped engaging with him. Let it be. I shook my head at the MC, who was looking at me for guidance. "No, I'm just being honest. I just say what I think." My mother-in-law tried to defend herself, visibly intimidated by Justin. "You think that's an excuse? Can an adult distinguish between when it's appropriate and inappropriate to speak?" "It was just a joke, to lighten the mood. Don't take it so seriously. It's not something to get angry about." "It absolutely is! This is a wedding! It's not just our family here. There are many people who care about Emmy. You, who are supposed to become her mother-in-law, just insulted her in front of everyone. You basically announced you're going to make her life miserable." Scattered applause broke out at Justin's words. "Brother-in-law, I'm sorry. My mom didn't mean any harm." Alex stood up to make excuses. "Alec, you're apologizing to the wrong person, and no excuses. If she meant no harm, how could she say something so stupid?" "Well, my mom is just honest." "That's self-proclaimed honesty. Being honest doesn't give you a free pass to slander." Alec was at a loss for words, cut off by Justin. "Emmy, can you stop your brother? He's ruining our wedding." My mother-in-law pleaded with me in a pathetic voice. "Yeah, Emmy, stop your brother. Don't make it hard for my wife and son." My father-in-law finally spoke, only to piggyback on my mother-in-law's words. They really were two peas in a pod, not thinking they did anything wrong. What are you people? My father finally couldn't stay silent and stood up. After ruining my daughter's wedding, you make it sound like my son is the bad guy. Slander, human rights violations, you must really want to be sued. We're done with family ties, but we'll meet plenty in court. Wait, suing? I just wanted a family where we could speak our minds. Right, Emmy? We could get along, couldn't we? My mother-in-law changed her tune after hearing my father's words, trying to excuse herself in a cloying voice. Her words and attitude were enough to make my anger explode. So, you think it's family-like to unilaterally badmouth your son's wife? To ruin a once-in-a-lifetime event, like a wedding? Well, my mother-in-law was at a loss for words. Glared at by Justin and my father, my in-laws hung their heads in silence. Come on, Emmy. Let's call it quits here. You're making me angry. Alec, completely missing the mood, spoke to me with a defiant attitude. I snorted. He's scared stiff of Justin, but looks down on me? What a loser. What do you mean, stop it? It's ridiculous. I didn't start this, your mom did, and you're blaming me? When I glared at Alec, he looked away. So weak. What did I ever see in this guy? I can't remember anymore. I can't marry you. This wedding is off, I shouted at Alec. Come on, we're in the middle of our wedding. Let's let bygones be bygones. Those aren't words the offender should say to the victim. Ever since I met your mom, I've been thinking we should call off this marriage. I've been too slow to decide. You mean you don't love me? I did love you, which is why I wanted to marry you. I even tried to tolerate your mom. But I realized something. A husband who won't stand up for me at our wedding won't stand up for me ever. When I declared this, a single round of applause echoed in the hushed wedding hall. It was Justin clapping for me. Beatrix, my father, and my mother joined in, and the applause grew louder. Even some of the guests from Alec's side started clapping, probably agreeing that Alec and his parents were out of line. And so the wedding was called off, and divorce discussions began. I hired a lawyer and demanded compensation from Alec for the divorce and a settlement from his mom for defamation. A friend had recorded the whole thing on their phone, so I had solid evidence. Plus, I had as many witnesses as there were guests. There's no way I could lose. I got a hefty settlement from Alec's family, and they paid for the entire wedding. I returned the gifts to my side of the guests, each of whom offered warm words. I've completely cut ties now, but Alec and his parents are in for a tough time. Alec's colleagues and bosses witnessed everything at the wedding, so his work environment must be uncomfortable. Rumors are also spreading about his parents in their neighborhood. I started living alone, feeling a weight lifted off my shoulders. If Justin hadn't stood up for me, I would have somehow finished the wedding and married Alec. I wouldn't be living this peacefully. I should thank Justin for wrecking the wedding.
I'm Leah. I met my husband Curtis in college at a party a friend invited us to. We started hanging out, going on outings, and grabbing meals together. Over time, Curtis and I grew closer. He made the first move, and I found myself drawn to his kindness. We started dating. But recently, strange things began happening. Trash appeared in my apartment mailbox, and I received anonymous phone calls that hung up as soon as I answered. I talked to Curtis about it and changed my phone number, but the anonymous calls continued on the new number. Honestly, it started to wear me down emotionally. Then, one day, Curtis invited me to a fireworks show. I wasn't in the mood because of the daily stress, but Curtis said, "Don't look so down. You'll ruin the fireworks. Cheer up. You'll feel better." You're right. I should enjoy myself since we're here. I decided to change my mood and enjoy the fireworks. As beautiful fireworks lit up the sky, Curtis suddenly shouted, "Leah, look!" The next fireworks spelled out, "Leah, will you marry me?" People around us started murmuring, and Curtis gave me the biggest smile. I want you to be happy forever, Leah. Let's always be together. Thank you. I'm so happy. Please make me happy. I couldn't help but cry. Curtis smiled, acknowledging the congratulations from those around us. Curtis' dad is a big-shot real estate agent, and Curtis is the vice president. So, I, a country girl, joined the world of the rich and famous. We moved into a luxury apartment owned by his dad and decided to build our own house, which was completed in 2 months. Our new home was spacious, with white walls and a lovely scent of wood. Then, one day, Curtis said, "Nicole and Garrett are coming over this Sunday to celebrate our move. Sorry for the short notice." What? We just moved in 2 days ago. We're not even unpacked. But okay, to be honest, I wasn't fond of Nicole, my sister-in-law. When we announced our engagement, she looked unhappy. She got married 6 months later and wore a white dress to our wedding, sticking close to Curtis and stealing the spotlight. But I decided to make the best of it. On Sunday, as I was making homemade pizza, the video doorbell rang. "Ah, Nicole's here. Isn't it supposed to be at 12? It's only 11. Okay, I'm coming." I rushed to the door, but Nicole was already heading to the living room without a greeting. She passed by me as if I wasn't there. "Curtis, a housewarming gift. Open it." "Nicole, it's been a while since the wedding. At least say hello." Nicole reluctantly greeted me and handed over a box. "Thanks. Let's see what's inside." It was a glass photo clock with a picture of Curtis and Nicole. I felt uneasy. From the way she was acting earlier, I thought she was dissatisfied with me and Curtis getting married. Normally, the photo should be of the married couple, not siblings. "Who cares? You're always with Curtis. I hardly see him. Let me have this." "Oh, sure." Nicole moved our wedding photo and placed the clock in a prominent spot. I pretended not to notice. Nicole said she wanted to see the rooms and went upstairs, pulling Curtis along. Her husband Garrett was left standing, looking at his phone. "Are you working? Please have a seat." "Ah, sorry," Garrett said and sat down. I prepared the meal and set the table. "The food's ready. Please eat while it's hot." Nicole came over and said, "Oh, I forgot. I brought some meat. Let's have a barbecue." I was stunned. A barbecue in our new home? The smell would permeate the whole house. I wasn't thrilled about it. Curtis seemed unfazed. "Nicole, that's some quality meat. Let's have a barbecue, Leah." Sure. It looks delicious." I couldn't help but force a smile. "Great! It's a nice brisket, right? I've already invited Mom and Dad. Let's all have a fun barbecue party. Whose house does she think this is?" I was getting angry at Nicole's audacity, but I held back because my in-laws were coming. I took the opportunity to serve my homemade pizza to my in-laws. When everyone gathered, I placed the hot pizza on the table. Nicole pushed her plate aside and put her meat, vegetables, and drinks on the table. However, my mother-in-law took some pizza. "Leah, this pizza is wonderful. Try some, dear." The father-in-law agreed. "This is really good. You could open a restaurant." I love Leah's special pizza. Nicole looked displeased as she ate her pizza. "It tastes like old-school pizza. Rustic, right? Don't you think so, Garrett?" Caught off guard, Garrett said, "It has a nostalgic taste, I guess." I distanced myself from Nicole and started grilling meat near my in-laws. "Leah, let us handle this. You should eat." "Thank you. I'll eat later. Please go ahead." Nicole bossed me around without mercy. "Leah, could you grill that meat over there? And we're running low on beer." "Sure, but it looks like we're out of beer. I'll go buy some." "No, I'll go," Curtis offered. Now, Curtis, we're all together for the first time in a while. Leah, please go. I went to the nearby supermarket, as Nicole instructed, to buy beer and hurried back home. When I returned, Garrett was on the phone at the entrance. I can't make it today. I'll go tomorrow. He noticed me and went inside. Sorry for the wait. Here's the beer. Thank you, Leah. Why don't you sit down and eat? Nicole seated me and placed some grilled corn on my plate, which I reluctantly ate. Ah, that was delicious. I'm full. How about you, Leah? She said it as if to provoke me. You've been treating me like a maid. I haven't even had any brisket, just corn. I managed to hold back my boiling anger. Didn't we save some meat for Leah? Oh, was that for Leah? I grilled it and ate it. It's fine. As long as everyone had fun, that's what matters. Don't worry about it. Nicole brought something from her car. Since I ate your meat, here you go. Thank you. Inside was a supermarket sandwich, and the bread was already stale. Still, I held back. Curtis, Leah, sorry for dropping by unannounced. Come visit us sometime. We're leaving now. Sure, we'll come over with Curtis. Next time, let's all go out for some good food. Yes, looking forward to it. My in-laws had left, but Nicole and her group showed no signs of leaving. Curtis, let's all play cards. I called Curtis into the bedroom. Sorry, I'm not feeling well. Can we ask Nicole and the others to leave? Are you okay? I'll tell them. You rest for a bit. Curtis went out and spoke to Nicole and the others. Leah's not feeling well. We'll have to call it a day, sorry. Sure, Leah must be tired. So we're leaving already? Why don't the three of us go to a club? Nicole, let's go home for today. We'll do it another time. How about we visit your apartment next week? Our place is a mess. Let's go out for dinner next week. Okay, we'll leave for today. Thanks for having us. Nicole and Garrett hurriedly left. After they left, I asked Curtis, why aren't Nicole and Garrett getting married? I actually don't know. I didn't even know Nicole was dating Garrett, but it's surprising they decided to get married right after we did. I became curious about Nicole and Garrett. They didn't act like a couple today, and Nicole was mostly talking to Curtis. And what was the phone call Garrett made? I decided to rest for the day since I was tired. The next day, Curtis suggested going out for dinner. Feeling better, I drove to a department store to buy clothes. As I was about to open my car door in the parking lot, another car pulled in. Garrett was in the driver's seat. A woman, not Nicole, was in the passenger seat. They were chatting happily. Is Garrett cheating? Such a nice guy. I discreetly left my car and went into the department store. I couldn't get it out of my head and ended up not buying anything. I went home and waited for Curtis. I couldn't stop thinking about what I saw. I don't like Nicole, but she is still Curtis' sister, so it bothered me. When Curtis came home, we headed to the restaurant. I was so preoccupied that I hardly ate. Leah, you're not eating much. Not hungry? I'm going to the restroom. Curtis went to the restroom. His phone buzzed in his bag. Curious, I peeked. It was a text from Nicole. Leah is definitely cheating. I saw her with another man. Leah and you are not a good match. Let's all live together again. You are being deceived by Leah. Nicole was making things up. It seemed she texted him daily. I was angry at myself for worrying about Nicole. Curtis returned from the restroom, picked up his phone and handkerchief, and looked serious. Leah, there's something I've been wanting to ask. Are you cheating on me? Nicole said she saw you with another man. I'm not cheating. Where were you today? I went to look at clothes at the department store. Did you buy anything? No, I didn't find anything I wanted. Curtis seemed to doubt me completely. He remained silent during dinner and went straight to our room without saying a word. The next morning, he was still silent at breakfast. Curtis, are you misunderstanding something? It seemed Curtis had misunderstood due to Nicole's text, my sudden outing, and the fact that I returned without buying anything. I couldn't bear to see our marriage crumble because of Nicole. I felt a surge of anger I'd been holding back, and tears flowed. I decided to go to Nicole's apartment to clear up Curtis' misunderstanding. I rang the room number I'd heard from the entrance hall's video phone, and Garrett appeared on the monitor. "It's Leah. Is Nicole there?" "Huh? She's out right now. Sorry, you came all this way." "Is that so? Garrett, can I come in? I have something to ask." The place is a mess. I'll come to you." "About yesterday in the department store parking lot." "Yesterday's? Oh, wait, I'll open the door." The room had no table and felt uninhabited. Surprised? Nicole and I aren't actually married. We haven't even applied for a marriage license. We live separately, even though we share a room. Then who was the woman in the parking lot? That's my sister. I've always loved her, and our parents started to suspect our relationship. I began posting on a website to vent my stress. "Did you meet Nicole there?" "Yes. We realized we were in similar situations and decided to have a sham marriage." "That's why you didn't have a wedding?" "Yes. Nicole loves Curtis, not as a brother, but as a man. She's trying to break you two up. Even I don't know what to do about her behavior. Nicole has always liked Curtis as a man, not as an older brother. But Nicole was more concerned about her own happiness than her brother's. I returned home and invited Nicole over for dinner by phone. She arrived when Curtis was supposed to be home. Curtis is working late today. Then I'm leaving. I stopped Nicole. I heard from Garrett. You two are in a sham marriage. You've been trying to break Curtis and me up. You texted Curtis that I was cheating, didn't you? So what? Curtis is mine. I won't give him to anyone. I've been getting rid of nuisances like you. Just then, Curtis, who had been hiding, stepped between us. Nicole, stop! Is this a lie? Curtis, you're here? You said you were working late. You lied? I invited Nicole here today. I wanted to hear the truth from her, but I'm disappointed. Nicole, apologize to Leah first. Nicole glared at me in silence. If you can't apologize after hurting someone I care about, I'll stop being your brother today. If you really care about me, don't take away my happiness. Nicole broke down crying. I felt like I was hitting my head on the floor and regretting what I had done. I told her, I can't forgive you right away, but I understand how you feel. Please find your own happiness. When this baby is born, I want you to hold them. Leah, you're pregnant? I wasn't feeling well lately, so I went to the hospital today. Curtis looked genuinely happy. Nicole came over and deeply apologized, saying, I'm really sorry for everything. She left our home in tears. Months later, our family grew and we're living happily. I don't know where Nicole is now, but we received a letter from her after the baby was born. It contained a congratulatory message and a photo of Curtis and me smiling. Seeing that photo, I felt Nicole had finally accepted me. Despite everything, I feel truly happy now. From now on, I want to live a happy life, full of smiles, with our family of 3.
You sure have it good, huh? Talking about work, looking at expensive clothes, eating at fancy restaurants? I'm jealous.
My husband hasn't been able to hold down a job since we got married. He seems to think everything will be fine just because I'm working. When money runs low, he turns to me, holding out his hand for cash. Until last year, my mom would scold my husband, saying, a breadwinner doesn't keep changing jobs like that. But now that she's gone, I'm starting to wonder when my husband's attitude will change. Then, out of the blue, something shocking happens that I never saw coming. My name is Jeannie. I'm 67 and I work as a fashion designer. A fashion designer is someone who designs and tailors clothes for a living. My job includes selecting materials, thinking about designs, and creating patterns. Currently, I'm freelancing and teaching others how to make clothes. I share my experience and skill with young people. In addition, I oversee apparel brands and engage in various activities through clothing. I am blessed with 2 sons and I live with my eldest son and his wife. They moved in with me considering my busy work schedule. My daughter-in-law takes care of the household chores, so I can focus on my work without worry, and I'm grateful for that. Unfortunately, I don't have any grandchildren, but we live together happily. That day, I had planned to eat at a fancy restaurant after a clothing exhibition I was invited to by a friend. Due to my line of work, I get invited to various clothing exhibitions. It's educational, and I was excited to go because I love my job. But my husband didn't like my enthusiasm and made a sarcastic comment.
You sure have it good, huh? Talking about work, looking at expensive clothes, eating at fancy restaurants. I'm jealous.
You could go to a fancy restaurant too if you just worked. Aren't you thinking about our future? And about the expensive clothes? These were left by my mom, I replied, but my husband just pretended not to hear. My husband has never been able to keep a job for long. It's been this way since we got married. At first, he said he was standing up for his colleagues at work and so on. After the second or third time, it seemed like the problem was with him. Lately, he's been saying things like,
My back hurts or my leg hurts,
and has been taking more time off work, eventually leading to retirement. When he runs out of money, he comes to me reaching out for more. He takes the money saying he's going to look for work, but I can see he ends up gambling it away. He has gout, so I don't want him drinking beer or any alcohol, but he always drinks.
I can't work because my back hurts and I have gout. You know that.
Well, I know a lot of people with those problems and they all work, I said, but
Oh, it hurts. It hurts. Can you make me some coffee?
my carefree husband would say. Then our eldest son's wife arrived. Yes, I'll make the coffee right away. I'm very grateful that our eldest son's wife is here, but I worry about her being a bit too upbeat. Mother-in-law, you are going out today, right? Leave father-in-law to me. I'll make sure he doesn't drink too much. Sorry for always leaving you with the housework and looking after my husband. I'll buy you a souvenir on my way back. Don't worry about it at all. Our eldest son's wife always speaks in a high tone, and I didn't want to hear that voice first thing in the morning. But I had to leave. On my way to the nearest station, I got a rare call from my second son, Tony. What's going on? A call from Tony? That's unusual, I said, to a somewhat whispered reply from Tony.
Mom, are you home now?
I'm on my way to the station for a clothing exhibition, I said, and he responded,
That's perfect. I'm at the cafe near the station. Can you come over?
Sure. I understand that time is limited. I replied and headed towards the cafe. When I entered the cafe, Tony was waving from a seat in the back. It's been a while, hasn't it? Are you doing well? I couldn't help but scrutinize Tony's appearance and complexion as his mother.
I'm doing fine. You're looking the same, Mom.
Yes, I'm fine. What's the sudden call for? I asked. Tony is my second son. When he married a woman older than him with a divorce history, he brought her home, but neither I nor my husband had a good impression on her. Since my husband opposed the marriage, Tony has been keeping his distance from our home. When I asked Tony later, he explained that his wife hadn't grown up with much family love and was shy and uncomfortable in public. She was the complete opposite of my oldest son's wife, I thought. I sometimes communicated with her over the phone or through messages. I hear from Tony too, but my husband keeps saying,
Get a divorce already.
As a result, Tony and my husband haven't seen each other for about 2 years. That was the backdrop to Tony's sudden call, and I was shocked at what he told me next.
Mila said she saw Dad and your daughter-in-law walking together.
Well, isn't it possible they went out together? Your father's unemployed again, after all.
He quit his job again? Dad?
Tony's face showed his disbelief.
If that's the case, it's even more likely that Dad and my sister-in-law might have been walking together.
Tony said, adopting the pose of someone deep in thought. I mean, what's the big deal? Isn't it a case of mistaken identity?
That's the thing. They didn't look like an ordinary parent and child.
What do you mean they're not parent and child?
As I tilt my head, Tony says, Mom, you're always so slow to catch on. Dad's having an affair, that's what it is.
Tony's voice raises slightly before he quickly lowers it. No way, stop it. Someone must have mistaken him for someone else. That's just like Dad. I laugh, then announce it's time for me to head to the exhibition and leave the cafe for the station. Even after hearing Tony's story, I can't think of anything that would confirm it, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little disturbed. My husband isn't particularly dapper, nor does he fit the mold of a badass dad. Nor is he balding or fat, but still, even at the clothing exhibition, I seem to be in a daze. I was even asked by a friend, is something wrong with you? So when the exhibition ended, I asked my other friends to go ahead with the dinner at the upscale restaurant, and I decided to go back. I'm back. Silence in the house. I wonder if they're out, I think. Then my husband and daughter-in-law return, laughing happily. The moment they see me, they seem to distance themselves a little.
Weren't you having dinner at the upscale restaurant?
My husband asked, looking puzzled. Mother-in-law, are you feeling ill? Francesca seems to show concern, but her voice is still high-pitched. Yeah, a little. More importantly, where were the two of you when I asked? There was a brief moment when my husband and Francesca looked at each other.
No, Francesca said she's never gambled before, so I thought it would be a good learning experience. Then Francesca hit the jackpot, so we just ate at a steakhouse. My husband spoke quickly. Francesca, was it really your first time gambling? I can't believe you won like that.
It was true. Maybe the horse tickets Father Pig were just good, right?
They both seemed to be enjoying their conversation when Francesca's husband, Lex, our eldest son, returned home. Apparently, he had overheard the conversation and was angry, saying,
Dad, don't teach Francesca unnecessary things. What will you do if she becomes addicted to gambling? Seriously.
I'm sorry, we won't go again.
Francesca begged forgiveness with her hands together, but Lex seemed a bit upset. No wonder Lex was serious and didn't gamble or smoke. He only drank a little alcohol, and it was still a mystery why he had married Francesca. Was it because Francesca was beautiful? Well, that didn't matter.
Here, Lex, I bought pizza for dinner. You're a boring and serious guy,
he said, handing over the pizza. Then he staggered into the house, perhaps having had a bit to drink. Lex offered to eat the pizza together, but I felt somewhat convinced by Tony's story and lost my appetite, so I declined. Lex also seemed concerned that something might be really wrong with me. A few days later, I was looking for one of Mom's keepsake garments. I noticed that there was one piece of clothing that I couldn't find. It was my favorite piece and I desperately wanted to wear it and go out, but I couldn't find it. As I searched around, my husband asked,
What are you doing? You're making a lot of noise.
I asked, Don't you know where Mom's keepsake garment like this is?
My husband said, Clothes, aren't they all the same?
And acted like he didn't know. That day, Lex, who was off from work, said,
Grandma's dress?
And helped me look for it, but in the end, we couldn't find it. Lex was raised with great affection by Mom, his grandmother. I think he must have been very lonely and sad when she passed away. He was a true grandma's boy after all. I was unsatisfied, unable to comprehend where I had put the dress, but time was short, so I decided to wear something else that day. My mom passed away last year from an illness, but she worked in fashion. My dad passed away in an accident when I was in high school. Mom managed to send me to technical college while working. With her career in fashion, she left me many dresses. She had many admirers and followers, and I am proud of my mom, who was loved by many. Seeing her all these years, I think I also wanted to work in fashion. If possible, I wanted to pass this job on to my son's wife, but my eldest son's wife seemed uninterested. The older dresses often have more value, and they don't look out of place even today. When you look at a dress, you can tell whether it's valuable or not. The dresses my grandmother wore were very carefully made. The mass-produced clothes of today may be flashy, but they are inferior in value. I'm doing my job with pride so as not to extinguish the wonderful culture of fashion. But even before we got married, my husband showed no interest at all. Our marriage was arranged, so it felt like a blind date. It seemed my mom had seen through my husband's lazy tendencies. I used to always complain about my husband and defend him. But looking back now, I wonder if he was really the one I should have married against my mom's objections. Then one day, my husband said, "I'm going out to look for work again." And he seemed to be leaving with a bag. I was suspicious and asked him what was in the bag. His behavior was strange and he only answered,
"It's none of your business."
So when I forcibly grabbed the bag, the dress of my mom's that I couldn't find the other day came out. I was genuinely surprised and shouted, "What is this all about? What are you planning to do with this dress?" He responded defiantly, saying things like, "You have plenty of dresses. It's okay to exchange one for money, isn't it?" I was so dumbfounded or frustrated that I could only sigh. "Anyway, this dress is a precious keepsake of my mom's and I will not sell it," I said, taking it back. My husband looked like he wanted to say something, but I quickly put the dress away in the closet. A dress that was like a treasure to me was just something to be exchanged for money to my husband. The thought made me profoundly sad, but I must be vigilant and leave no room for carelessness. I thought I might have to change to a locked chest and switched gears, telling Lex about the situation.
Lex said, "You should do that. Change it as soon as possible."
And immediately referred me to a shop that sold locked closets. As I was moving the dresses into the newly acquired locked closet, I noticed that 2 dresses were missing. I probably thought my husband had taken them again, but I knew he would deny knowing anything if I asked. So I didn't pry. Instead, I had attached a recording device to the underside of the table. I wasn't really keen on the idea, but Tony persuaded me, so I reluctantly agreed to set it up. Then, to my surprise, there were voices on there that were far beyond what I had anticipated. Right after I left for work, I heard the sound of footsteps coming down the stairs, supposedly from my eldest son's wife. Then,
"Father-in-law, mother-in-law have put a lock on the closet. Can't steal clothes anymore, huh?"
Lex said he's going to refer someone to take care of it. Isn't Lex suspicious too?
No way. He's just serious and a mama's boy who loves his mother.
Lex is a mama's boy, huh?
The sound of their laughter was recorded. After that, there were only sounds like my daughter-in-law starting the laundry or cleaning, and then the tape ended. I didn't prepare a new tape because I didn't want to hurt myself any further. However, I began to steadily prepare for divorce, agonizing over how to talk to Lex about it. Even though I said preparing for divorce, where to start? The house was all in my name too. Then several weeks later, I was invited to another clothing exhibition and decided to go. I told my husband and Francesca that I would have dinner as well, and I left the house. Being at home only made me think unnecessary thoughts, and I thought it would be a good diversion, so I left. I believe that my recent lack of appetite was probably because of overhearing that conversation, so this time I decided to go to the upscale restaurant that I had missed last time. Still, even though it was for work, having a meal with people who understood fashion was fun, and I was enjoying the time for the first time in a while. Getting lost in conversation, and perhaps because I had had a little drink, I couldn't help but vent my frustrations. I was embarrassed to discuss family matters, but I mentioned to a friend that my husband and eldest son's wife had been acting strangely. Because I spoke in a whisper, the voices from the next room came through clearly. And those voices were unmistakably familiar. Could it be a coincidence that my husband and my eldest son's wife were in the room next door? Francesca's high-pitched voice was resonating. I thought about calling out to them, wondering if they were celebrating a gambling win again, but I overheard their conversation. The moment I heard it, I panicked and called the police. A friend nearby noticed my pale face and recorded the conversation on her cell phone. I couldn't stop trembling from what I heard, feeling as if I was about to lose control. A few minutes later, I heard the sirens of the police cars.
Who is the woman requesting protection?
I am. I managed to make my way to the entrance of the restaurant. The sirens caused a commotion inside the restaurant. Then my husband and Francesca emerged from the private room.
You? What are you doing here?
That's my line, isn't it?
Is the protection request from your husband?
No, it's my husband and this eldest son's wife.
What happened, mother-in-law? I'm just here for dinner with your husband.
She looked as if she had nothing to do with it. That's when my friend said I made sure to record it. and played back the recording on her phone. It captured the nefarious scheming between my husband and Francesca. My husband had said he had quit his job, but in reality he was fired for embezzling company money, and he had been selling my clothes to pay the compensation. Moreover, the two of them were in a romantic relationship and they had been secretly poisoning me little by little. They were saying awful things about me and our eldest son. It was all so horrible. I just wanted to cover my ears. I became so frightened that I asked the police for protection. Even after hearing the recording, Francesca casually said, "Come on, mother-in-law, it's obviously a joke," and laughed. At that moment, I felt like I saw a hidden side of Francesca.
You shouldn't bother the police with a family squabble, my husband added. With the recording alone, the police were scratching their heads when our eldest son, Lex, arrived. After I left the room and called the police, I had also contacted Lex and our second son. Officer, please look at these pictures. I had them investigated by a detective agency,
Lex said, handing over a large envelope. Then our second son, Tony, arrived.
I helped too. Dad, what are you doing with Francesca? You're in no position to talk about my wife. Don't you think it's disgraceful?
My husband was so shocked by Tony's direct confrontation that he couldn't say a word. Even in this chaotic situation, Francesca tried to play the victim, saying things like, "I was attacked by father-in-law one day." But our eldest son had apparently sent something and had been secretly investigating. Lex wouldn't even look at Francesca. Inside the envelope were several pieces of paper with the contents of the investigation along with photos of my husband and Francesca entering a hotel and my husband bringing my mom's clothes to a consignment shop. Furthermore, it was revealed that Francesca had been seducing a male pharmacist at the prescription pharmacy to get my husband's medication secretly. She had been mixing that medicine into my food. I didn't want to ask what kind of medicine it was, so I decided not to. But now I'm taking medication to relieve the symptoms caused by that drug, and I'm feeling much better. This became the irrefutable evidence. A beautiful young married woman sure attracts attention. Or is there no pride in being a pharmacist? I went to school for 6 years and my parents would be in tears. That's what crossed my mind. Once the evidence was gathered, husband and Francesca were arrested by the police right away and put into a patrol car. My eldest son, second son, and I were told by the police that there was a statement, so we followed later and we apologized to the store for causing a commotion. I felt relieved, but at the same time, all my strength was gone and I was supported by my son. Husband and Francesca were not only charged with attempted murder against me and theft of my clothes, but husband was also accused of embezzlement from his previous company, so they will be in jail for a while. When they were released, I had already filed for divorce and he has no home to return to. This is truly self-inflicted. My eldest son also went through divorce procedures with Francesca. She apologized a lot, but he firmly told her that they could never start over and the divorce was finalized. It turned out that Francesca had a criminal record, having been arrested for prostitution in the past. Of course, Lex married her without knowing anything about it. Francesca had caused a lot of trouble for her relatives in this matter and her parents left money as an apology, but we accepted only half of it. I thought it would lighten the burden on Francesca's parents a bit. Lex seems quite unfazed and is talking about looking for a new girlfriend. There are many good girls among my juniors, so I'm thinking of introducing them once things settle down, but he's such a serious eldest son. My second son, who couldn't visit home until now, has been coming with his wife lately and I can tell they're worried about me. Furthermore, my second son's wife is 5 months pregnant with a baby. It's nearing the stable period of pregnancy. The thought of seeing my grandchild's face is incredibly exciting. It feels like a dream. Since my younger son's wife doesn't have her family home, I'm more and more keen on acting as a true parent. I have the room, so I'm also proposing that they move in with me. Myla, my younger son's wife, is interested in fashion, so after she gives birth, I'm secretly hoping she'll help me as my assistant in my work. I feel like I can get along well with Myla, but if my husband were to get out of prison while we're still alive, that would be a problem. Lately, I've been thinking about selling this house and living at a comfortable distance in a condominium if that were to happen. This house is filled with Mom's memories, so I intend to live here for a while longer. I may not have been blessed with my husband, but I can say I have been blessed with my sons. I'm also thankful to the friend who recorded the wicked plot of my husband and Francesca. They continue to be a support to me, and I'm planning to go on a trip soon. Also, Mom's keepsake clothes, which the police had kept as evidence, have returned from the vendor. I feel like Mom has been protecting me. From now on, I want to focus only on being happy and taking good care of myself.
Can you leave? My sister's coming home to give birth. My husband Travis wanted to kick me out of our home because his sister, Angelina, was coming back to her family home to give birth at a nearby hospital. That's absurd, I argued, not buying into his unreasonable request. But he wouldn't listen and eventually threatened me with divorce. Feeling utterly disheartened by his attitude of cutting me off entirely, I agreed to the divorce and left the house. But even after our separation, Travis kept sabotaging my life. Little did he know. Karma was about to catch up with him. Hi, I'm Sherry, 34 years old. I was working as a nurse at a hospital, completely absorbed in my daily routine. I met Travis, who works in pharmaceutical sales. When he came by my workplace, our relationship blossomed from there. And a year later, we tied the knot. But just as we got married, his parents, who were running a factory from their home, decided to shut it down. His parents were elderly, and for the past few years, it had just been his mom, Melissa, and him trying to keep the business afloat. But due to the economic downturn, they decided to close shop. Travis, however, felt a sense of duty and decided to take over. I tried to dissuade him, saying a job in pharma sales was more stable than running a failing factory. But Travis is stubborn. Once he makes up his mind, there's no changing it. So we ended up moving in with his parents almost immediately after getting married. At that point, Travis felt motivated to turn things around, and so he decided to renovate the old family home and factory. The construction started in no time. Wow, it's really coming along. I'm so glad we decided to add this terrace. We can have barbecues in the summer. I can't wait. Initially, I was skeptical, but his enthusiasm was infectious. Once the New Year celebrations were over, our new home was ready, and our life with his parents began. Here's to a good life together from today. Thank you. I'm really happy we could make this work. I know Travis can be a handful. I was initially worried about how his parents would take to me, but they warmly welcomed me. They seemed happy to have a daughter-in-law who was willing to support their son as he struggled to keep the family business going. That night, while arranging pictures of our travels in our new bedroom, Travis walked in. Wow, Sherry, this space looks great, just like you said. I know, right? I'm glad we finally have a place to put up our photos. Thank you for sticking by me through all this. You're making me blush, thanking me like that. Don't worry, I'll make the factory successful and give you an easy life. Don't push yourself too hard, but I'm excited. I felt genuinely grateful for respecting my husband's ambition to build a brighter future. However, 2 months later, Melissa received a message from Angelina. It read, I want to go back home and give birth at a family hospital near our home. I'll be back the week after next. Upon hearing this, Travis was overjoyed, raising both arms. We have to vacate our bedroom for her. We don't have any spare rooms. What? I don't like that idea. Why not? It's for my pregnant sister. I can sleep in the study, so it's no problem. What about me? Well, you can sleep in the kitchen or the hallway, I guess. That's ridiculous. Let's clear out the corner room on the second floor for Angelina. That room is cramped and full of clutter. How about you sleep there instead? I've made up my mind, right, Mom? If Travis says so, let's do it that way. I object. I'm fine with Angelina coming, but I don't want to give up our bedroom. I was upset that my husband would dismiss my feelings to accommodate Angelina and that Melissa readily agreed with him. Stop being selfish. This is my house. Please, bear with it for a little while. I don't accept this. It's my house too. As I continued to object, Travis's face tightened, clearly getting irritated. Then he spoke words of surprise.
What? You're my wife. You should understand.
It's odd for you to claim this as your home when you're just my son's wife. What?
A wife isn't family, you know? If you hate it so much, just leave.
Why? Angelina left home when she got married, too.
She's my sister. We share blood. Plus, her unborn child could be the heir to this house. Right now, I want to prioritize a potential heir. If you hate it that much, go back to your family home.
I was taken aback, unable to come up with a quick retort. I felt disgusted that Travis was already considering the heir issue upon hearing Angelina's baby was a boy. And there was another concern on my mind. What about our child? You said you couldn't think about having kids until the business was stable, so any child will do?
Enough. Enough. I'm fed up. If you can't obey me, let's get a divorce.
Fine by me. Bring it on. Until now, I've always respected my husband's wishes, but this time I can't let it go. In a fit of anger, I agreed to the divorce. No regrets. I'm convinced I can't go on with this man. My husband, unable to contain his anger, stormed off somewhere. I seized the opportunity to pack my bags and leave. As I was about to go, my husband reappeared with the divorce papers in hand.
Here's what you wanted. Now sign it, quick.
That was fast. You're a lifesaver. As I grabbed the divorce papers and started writing without hesitation, my husband muttered something unpleasant in my ear.
You're stupid for choosing divorce over this. I thought you were smarter. Don't come crying back to me.
The stupid one might be you.
What did you say? Just go. Vanish.
Spewing venomous words, my husband retreated into his study. I finished the divorce papers, left the house, and submitted them immediately. I never thought I'd leave my husband like this, but I know I made the right choice. I resolved to move on. I went straight to a real estate agent and quickly signed a lease for a condo near work. I had a few days before moving in, so I stayed with a coworker. When I explained the situation, she offered her support, promising to be there if I needed her. A week later, I completed the move to my new condo and began my new life. But peace didn't come easy. About a month into living alone, I noticed I was being followed by a man named Travis. I ignored his unsettling presence until a coworker came up to me with alarming news. Your ex-husband was here earlier, spreading rumors that you cheated on him, and that's why he was dumped. What? Don't worry, no one's taking him seriously. We know you didn't do anything like that. I'm Team Sherry all the way. Thank you. He probably couldn't forgive me for finally standing up to him. He must be trying to make me regret my decision by harassing me. But I thought if I just endure this a little longer, he'll quit. I apologized to my colleagues for the disturbance and went about my days, pretending not to be rattled. A month later, just as I'd hoped, Travis stopped stalking me, and I thought I was finally in the clear. But I would soon find out how naive I had been. One day, after coming home from work, I checked my mailbox, only to find rotten fruit inside. I had a gut feeling that Travis, who had followed me and discovered where I live, was behind this. Day after day, I'd find dead insects or filthy objects in the mailbox. This was harassment, beyond tolerable levels. Just when I was considering reporting it to the police, it suddenly stopped. But the moment I let my guard down, something new appeared in my mailbox. This cycle continued. 3 months after I had moved out, Travis finally called me.
Hey, it's me. Can we talk?
Sure. I agreed to meet up at a cafe near my home. I wanted to confront him face to face. It had been a while since we saw each other, and Travis was noticeably uncomfortable.
How have you been?
How? I'm not doing great, thanks to you. You realize what you've been doing is criminal, right?
Yeah, I get it. I'm sorry. So come back, will you?
What are you talking about?
I regretted kicking you out on impulse. Can we start over?
There was no way I would agree to this. He'd been harassing me all this time, and now he was trying to lure me back? But deep down, I knew this was coming. You're calling because you're in a financial crunch, aren't you? It's pretty obvious.
That's not it. I didn't want to divorce you. I realized I love you.
Really?
There's no one as kind as you.
Suddenly, Travis grabbed my hand and pressed it to his cheek. I felt my skin crawl and quickly pulled my hand away, then got to the point. Pretty convenient for you, huh? You're behind on the house payments, aren't you?
It's not like that. I'm saying we should live together because I need you.
Throughout our marriage, I supported you in every way, yet you did everything you could to sabotage my new life. Why should I forgive you so easily?
I need you to pay the mortgage to afford living. Please come back.
Travis pleaded, his hands clasped in desperation. But I had no intention of forgiving him for the harassment I had endured. Actually, the house we rebuilt was in Travis's name, but I was the one covering the mortgage payments. And to make matters worse, the family business wasn't stable because we had to close the factory temporarily for renovations. So basically, I was the financial pillar for Travis's family. Kicking me out, he should have known money would get tight. Now you're going to realize how much you've messed up. The only thing waiting for you is a world of pain. Then he showed his true colors.
I'm apologizing here. What's your problem? Fine. I don't care about you anymore. You better remember this. I'll make sure you won't be able to work.
I decided then and there, it's time for some serious payback. Fast forward a week later, I visited a lawyer to discuss alimony and the ongoing harassment I had been getting from Travis. Thankfully, I had video evidence of Travis caught in the act from our condo's security camera. I also got advice from the lawyer that I could claim emotional damages, so I had them send Travis the full legal documentation. Travis, now panicking, reached out to me, and we agreed to meet at the law office. I'll be filing for alimony and damages.
You've got to reconsider this.
Sorry, but I've already submitted all the evidence of your harassment to my lawyer.
Come on, we were married, right? Can't we just sort this out?
If you refuse, we'll go to court. I won't budge. My words shattered his arrogance, replacing it with a look of utter fear.
I was wrong. I won't do it again. Please drop the alimony and damages. I beg you.
Nope. See you in court. Or should I take this evidence to the police?
What?
Thought you could get away with stalking and dumping trash? You should be thankful I'm keeping this civil.
Fine. Let's talk.
Realizing I meant business, Travis broke down and finally agreed to his settlement. In the end, he had to pay $10,000 in alimony and $30,000 in damages. He looked like a ghost. The reason I didn't go to the police was simple. His misery was just beginning. His family defaulted on the mortgage payments, ignored the warnings, and their new home was eventually auctioned off. They both lost their home and their business in one go. Who'd have thought? Travis and his parents had a massive fight. If only they had listened to me and shut down the factory, or even stood by me over the whole Angelina issue, none of this would have happened. Now Travis's family is scattered. His parents rented a tiny rundown house in the countryside with their meager savings and live in poverty. Travis tried to make a fresh start by finding a live-in job, but Angelina stopped him. I have nowhere else to go, so take me with you. Turns out Angelina was divorced too, because she got swindled in a shady business deal and racked up debt. Learning about the truth, Travis had a big fight with Angelina. He later texted me saying,
"So help me out here."
But of course I ignored him. It seems that despite their fights, Travis couldn't abandon his sister, who had just had a newborn, and he ended up paying off Angelina's debt himself. Friends who've seen Travis told me he's now working all hours, looking like a shadow of his former self. I felt no sympathy for him. As for me, I've remarried a man from my workplace and finally found a peaceful life. He truly cherishes me, and because he's a well-planned individual, I feel secure in our life together.
This house is mine. I paid for it. Get out. You won't survive without me on your part-time wages. Ha ha ha. Henry sneers and gleefully unfolds the divorce papers. My name is Olivia, and I'm 33 years old. Recently, I started working part-time at a nearby grocery store. I met Henry, my husband, at work. We got close, married 3 years ago, and I left my job soon after. Even though I wanted to continue working after marriage, Henry insisted that I become a homemaker. I reluctantly agreed, but couldn't shake off the desire to work again. After daily persuasion, Henry finally allowed me to work part-time. We want kids, but haven't been blessed yet. I wanted a pet and suggested getting a cat, but Henry hates them, so I gave up on the idea. Ever since I started working part-time, Henry criticizes everything I do. Did you go to work again today? The house is getting messy. Look at those wrinkled clothes. You're not keeping up with the chores. That's not true. I clean before going to work and the laundry is fine. What are you talking about? I've been managing everything perfectly. Henry retorts, the place looks dirty. Are you blind? And why is it always fried chicken? Can't you make something else? I don't make fried chicken that often. I try to vary our meals. I made your favorite fried chicken despite being short on time. I've prepared a variety of dishes. Henry doubles down when I push back. So, you're blaming your part-time job? Don't act so high and mighty. I earn enough for both of us. Do your chores properly and stop making excuses. It's embarrassing to see you work so hard for such a low wage. Henry always belittles me and my job. He wanted me to be a homemaker to maintain his image, not because we needed the money. He disapproves of my part-time job and takes every opportunity to mock me, asserting his financial superiority to unleash his verbal abuse. Even though he's my husband, I can't stand it when he degrades my work with harsh words. His words were ruining my mood every day. One day, we decided to go on a long-awaited drive to his parents' house. I had been irritated with him for a while, but I thought this outing would be a good break, so I was happy. At the time, I couldn't imagine that the visit to my in-laws would turn out the way it did. We drove for a few hours and finally arrived at his parents' home, where his mom was waiting for us. His mom, who lives alone, greeted us warmly. We had dinner prepared by her, and then my husband left to play poker. As his mom and I were doing the dishes, I noticed her demeanor change. She had been calm, but now her expression was stern. Wondering what was wrong, I made some coffee, and we sat down on the sofa. Then she spoke up. "Olivia, Henry told me you've been working part-time. Why do you need to work when Henry has a good job? And it sounds like you're not taking care of the house because of it." I was taken aback by her sudden questions. "No, that's not true. I'm doing my part-time at home." She widened her eyes dramatically. "I heard everything from Henry about how poorly you keep the house. Lying won't help. Henry has been suffering alone. He comes home to a dirty house after a hard day's work. You're even failing at cooking decent meals. Quit your part-time job. No one at your workplace would even care if you left. Your job is to be a homemaker. Don't embarrass yourself as Henry's wife." She's an old-fashioned woman who got married right after school and has never worked outside the home. My husband also believes that's what a wife should be like. That's why they both dislike the idea of me working. But her words were too much. I felt devastated by her heartless comment. that my job doesn't matter and that no one would miss me if I left. I find my part-time job rewarding and everyone there is nice. They treat me well and rely on me. Tears filled my eyes as I couldn't believe they thought so little of me. What shocked me even more was that my husband was talking badly about me behind my back. I do manage our home. Actually, because of my part-time job, I've been putting in more effort to manage the house well. I know my husband's job is tough, so I've been doing my best to support him. But to think that he and his mom were talking bad about me over the phone, I just couldn't believe it. I was quite depressed for a few days, but then I remembered my dad's face. Ever since Mom passed away, he's been living alone in our family home. I haven't seen him for a while because I've been busy. I felt like hearing his voice, so I called him. Usually, he picks up right away, but that day the phone kept ringing. When I started to worry about why he wasn't picking up the phone, finally Dad answered. "Olivia, long time no see. How have you been?" Hearing Dad's calm voice, I felt relieved and tears started to flow. "What's going on? You didn't pick up for a while. Should I call back later if you are busy?" It seemed like Dad was out of breath. "No, sorry about that. I fell down the stairs recently and hurt my back. I can only move slowly right now, but it's nothing to worry about. I'll be fine soon. More importantly, is everything okay with you?" I was genuinely shocked. I couldn't believe that my athletic dad had fallen down the stairs and hurt his back. "No, I'm fine. Just please take it easy and get better soon. I'll come visit you before long." Though Dad kept saying he was fine, I started to worry. He's getting up there in age, and injuries could take a long time to heal. I had always taken his vitality for granted, but now I was anxious. Climbing stairs every day means there's always a chance he might trip and fall. On top of that, the stairs at my childhood home are pretty steep. The house is old, too, which means there are high steps leading into the entrance and bathroom. I became increasingly worried about Dad navigating the house while nursing his back. What if he seriously injured himself? I couldn't stand the thought. I had always wished to live closer, and now it seemed there was no time to hesitate. I made a significant decision to build a safer, more comfortable house for Dad near me. I had a hidden source of income that even my husband didn't know about. I had inherited an apartment business from my grandpa. Though technically it should belong to Dad, he had put it in my name for just-in-case scenarios. Dad always told me it's best not to talk about this, so even my husband doesn't know. I had saved all the rental income up until now. With that money, I could build Dad a new home. I've always been a worry for my dad, never really been able to give back to him. Now, I finally have a chance to give him the best gift of his life. The thought made my heart soar. However, building a new house would cost a significant amount, so I first needed my husband's understanding. I was on pins and needles, expecting another complaint and a big no. But instead, the response was, "You know, you might be right. Considering our age, maybe a new home is a better idea." Far from opposing, he graciously agreed. "Just don't come crying to me if you can't actually pull it off," he said, undermining me once again. Though it made me mad, I didn't want another fight, so I let it go. Now, the path was clear. I immediately started to search for reputable contractors and pushed ahead with the plans, though my husband didn't seem pleased. He didn't complain, but I could tell he wasn't fond of the idea. Then, one day, I was shocked when I went to the bank to withdraw money for groceries. $3,000 was missing from our account. I was shocked to see $3,000 missing from our joint account. I didn't remember spending that much money. There was only one person who could have done this. It was hard to believe my husband would take money without asking, but the reality was that the money was gone. That night, I confronted him. "Hey, I went to the bank today and $3,000 was withdrawn from our living expenses account. Do you know anything about this?" My husband smugly replied, "I gave it to my mom. You were talking about building a house, right? You must be stashing money somewhere. What's the big deal with $3,000? I couldn't believe my ears. "Why did you have to give her the money? It's not like my mother-in-law is broke. And that money is for our living expenses. You can't just give it away without asking me. That's totally unfair." My husband snapped back. "What do you know about my mom? She said she's struggling. What's wrong with a son helping his mother? Besides, I earned that money. What I do with it is none of your business. If you're upset, go earn your own money part-time. See, you've got nothing to say. Don't ever complain about what I do again." He shouted and stormed out of the room. I had always believed that even if my husband had a bad temper, he wouldn't betray me. It would have been better if he had just discussed giving money to his mother with me. Perhaps there was another way, and this fight could have been avoided. Was it that he thought I would object? Or did he not trust me? I felt like our marriage was getting worse, not better. The next day, my husband acted like nothing had happened and went to work. I didn't want to argue anymore, but the bad feeling lingered. Finally, our new home was completed. Thanks to a helpful construction company, we managed to build a beautiful home. I had arranged for a moving company to help my dad with the packing. Everything seemed to be going well. With just 2 weeks left until the moving day, I was brimming with joy at the thought of honoring my parents in the home I built. The plan for the big day was to go to the new house with my husband to help my dad unpack. But when we sat down to discuss the day's schedule, my husband dropped an unbelievable bombshell. "Hold on, that house isn't for your dad. I'm giving it to my mom. I have the right to decide who lives there." I was stunned. "That house is for my dad. I built it." Rushing my words, he retorted, "You, working part-time, could never afford to build a house. I built that house with my money." He seemed to genuinely believe he had paid for the house. Was his agreement to build the house in the first place because he intended it for his mother, not my dad? His behavior was appalling. Now, I had to prove that the house was built with my money. I had no choice but to reveal the rental income I had been silently earning. When I told my husband about my decision, he didn't believe me. "You're making up a crazy story just to get the house the way you want it. Why not come up with a better lie while you're at it?" And no one believed me, so my husband stormed off somewhere. I didn't know what to do, but I figured the only option was to keep explaining until they understood. With that thought in mind, I anxiously awaited his return, and when he finally came back, he looked furious. Then he blurted out, "You are trying to scam me," he yelled. "Saying you built the house. That's my house. I built it. Pack your bags and get out. You won't survive on your part-time job salary. Ha ha ha." I was stunned, at a loss for words. It was too much, too fast. I had built that house, and being told to leave was shocking. "Sign this and be gone by tonight," my husband said, throwing the divorce papers on the table and walking away. His part was already filled out. After mocking me all this time, pushing a divorce paper in my face like I'm beneath him, that's just despicable. He must have done this awful act to bring me to despair. He probably thought that by bringing up divorce, I'd back down and let his mother move into our home. Sadly for him, I have enough income to sustain myself even without him. I reached my boiling point. I signed the divorce papers and left, heading to my dad's place with all my stuff. Dad was surprised but welcomed me warmly. "Come on in." After I told him everything, he patted me on the back. "Then let's live together in a new home. I'd be happier that way." He said just that. Moving day came and everything went smoothly, probably because my arrival sped up preparations. Although it felt eerie how my husband didn't make a fuss despite all his previous claims about the house being his, I tried not to think about it. Then, a few days into my new life with Dad, something unbelievable happened. Curious about the noise outside, I looked out the window. A moving truck had parked right in front of our house. Turns out, this is their new home. When I asked what was going on, I learned that my husband was the client and he'd be arriving with his mother soon. My dad and I already live in this house, and it looks like he's planning on moving in uninvited. We're already divorced, so he is practically a stranger now. We don't want him barging in. His pushy attitude creeped me out, so I told the movers to halt and rang up the police after consulting with my dad. After explaining the situation to the officers, they confirmed that not only did he have no right to live here, but even stepping foot inside against my will was illegal trespassing. Just then, my husband and mother-in-law strolled in, all relaxed. Upon seeing the police officer, they both started to panic and get flustered. It seemed like it finally dawned on my husband that I had built this house. But between a panicking mother-in-law at his side and a barrage of questions from the officer, he had already lost his composure. "Why can't I live here? What's going on?" He raised his voice, desperately trying to resist. Watching my husband act like that, I felt done dealing with him. But to protect me and my dad, I quietly handed my trump card to the police. Thanks to the cops, the situation was diffused, but he found himself in a pickle. He had already given up his apartment, so now he was stuck with a ton of belongings and nowhere to go. I was worried about my husband's repeated verbal abuse, or in other words, evidence of domestic violence. For quite some time, I couldn't stand his harsh words anymore. I'd planned to get back at him someday, so I installed surveillance cameras around the house and recorded everything. The footage showed me diligently doing housework and my husband relentlessly hurling unreasonable insults. Thanks to this evidence, I managed to corner him even further. I hired a lawyer and initiated a lawsuit, eventually securing a financial settlement in the divorce. My husband spent all his savings, the money from selling the family home and the settlement money on moving and compensating me. Now, it seems he's living in a rundown apartment with his mother. Word spread quickly at his workplace. Colleagues who noticed something off about his character started to distance themselves, leaving him isolated and scorned by everyone in the company. As for me, I finally got the cat I've always wanted. Dad's back is much better now. And we are even talking about taking a trip with the cat. I also used the settlement money to start a business that sells cat-related products. While the initial phase had its ups and downs, the customer base has slowly grown and the business is doing well. Life is peaceful and genuinely enjoyable every day. I never thought the steps I took for Dad's well-being would also lead to my own happiness. I truly feel it was the right decision. And there's another recent development that's made me happy. There's a man who frequently visits my shop and always has delightful conversations with me. He is a wonderful person, kind to both people and cats. We've planned to go for a drive together soon. I'm going to live my life freely and joyfully. The anticipation of new happiness ahead has my heart soaring.